Hi, friends. Today I would like to tell you a story about how God answered my prayer in a way I wasn't even expecting. Isn't it wonderful how God has a million ways to solve our problems? This story happened to me in 2024, less than 2 years ago. So here's what happened. I was going to need some more money for the mortgage payments because my dad had just passed away. And he had been making the payments on his house while he was alive. Winter was coming soon, and when you live in the mountains, winter is not a good time to try to move or sell your house. And that's because it gets very cold and there can be a lot of snow too. So I was really praying about how to solve this problem. I had tried a few things. I had even applied for a loan, but each time I hit a dead end. Has that ever happened to you? One day I went to town to try yet another idea, but it didn't work. On the way home, I was feeling really down because once again, my efforts were met with failure. Before I got home, I picked up the mail, and as I was looking through it, I saw a letter from the electric company. So I opened it up, and it was a statement of my dad's capital credits. So, what are capital credits? Well, the electric company is a co op, and they pay out something called capital credits to their customers, usually once a year. Capital credits come from the money that is left over after they pay all the expenses. And since the electric company is nonprofit, they pay the extra money back to their customers. And it's based on how much electricity they use. They usually send out small checks in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 each year. The letter showed that my dad had capital credits of a little over $5,000. Now, I really didn't get excited about that because I knew the electric company only sends out small checks each year. This was showing the total amount that he had earned. But seeing the letter, it reminded me that I needed to get my name on the account since it was still in my dad's name. So that night I went online and added my name to the account. Well, the next morning, a lady from the electric company called me and she left a message. She wanted me to call her. During the call, she asked about my dad, and I told her that he had recently passed away. She told me that I needed to have my own account and pay a $250 deposit. I couldn't just add my name to my dad's account. When she said the next part, I couldn't believe my ears. She told me that I could apply for my dad's capital credits. She went on to explain that since he had passed away, his credits would be paid out in a lump sum payment. Can you imagine? I was shocked when she said this because I immediately realized the significance of what she was saying since I had just read his statement and it showed his balance was around $5,000. I really didn't want to get my hopes up too much because this was almost too good to be true. The idea of getting the $5,000 in a lump sum payment instead of small payments each year, I had no idea that this was even possible. But this would be perfect to help with the mortgage payments through the winter. If I could get this, it would be the answer to my prayer. She said she would email all the forms and information. So when I got the forms, I filled them out and got them notarized, and I sent them all back to her along with the required documentation. Then I waited, and I waited some more. Would I actually get a check for $5,000? Several weeks went by, and I was really wondering, so I thought I would call and check on it. When I called, she said that the check was in the mail. And sure enough, a day or two later, I got a check for a little over $5,000. That $5,000 probably represented the capital credits for around 20 years worth of electricity that my parents had purchased. I put that money in my savings account and was really careful with it. I was able to make it last all winter to help with the mortgage payments. I remember my mom used to say that God could make money drop out of the sky if he wanted to. And it's as if that's exactly what he did, because I had no idea this could happen. Well, God rained down manna on the Israelites for 40 years. When you think about it, God literally supplied their needs by dropping food out of the sky. I also think of the story of the poor widow who owed a debt and she didn't know how she was going to repay it. They were about ready to come and take her sons and make them slaves because of her late husband's debts. One day she was talking with the prophet Elisha and she told him about her problem. He said, "What can I do to help? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" She thought about it and she said, "Well, really nothing at all. I just have this flask of olive oil." Elisha told her, "Borrow as many jars as you can from your friends and neighbors and take them in your house. And you go in your house with your sons and close the door. And then take that flask of olive oil and fill all those jars up." Can you imagine how she must have thought that sounded crazy? How was her little flask of olive oil going to fill up all those jars? But she started out. She filled up the first jar and she still had some oil left. And then she filled up the next jar and she kept on going until they were all filled. And then she told her son, "Bring me another jar." And he said, "Well, there aren't any more." And that's when the olive oil stopped flowing. She told Elisha about what happened, and he said, "Now go and sell all the olive oil and pay your debts. And you and your sons can live on what is left over." So there was going to even be some money left over. You can read about this story in 2 Kings 4, 1-7. God used ravens from the sky to feed the prophet Elijah when there was a famine. And God provided water for him to drink from the brook. And then there's the widow at Zarephath. When Elijah asked her for a loaf of bread, she said, "I'm just out here gathering a few sticks and I'm going to cook the last meal for my son and I. And after that, we're just going to starve." Elijah told her that if she made him something to eat, her flour and oil would not run out until the rain came. She did what he said, and it happened exactly the way Elijah said. Day after day, God miraculously replenished her flour and oil. God rewarded her because she was willing to use up the last little bit of food she had to feed Elijah. While others were starving, her and her son had food to eat. It never ran out until the rains came and the famine ended. This story is in 1 Kings 17:7-16. These Bible stories, they are amazing. They're almost unbelievable, but they did actually happen. Now, has God changed? Is God the same today as he was in the Bible times? The good news is God hasn't changed. There's even a Bible verse that says that. It says God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's in Hebrews 13:8. So why wouldn't God perform miracles today like he did in the Bible? He will, and he does, and he did it for me. If we obey God, he has promised to provide for our needs. Paul says, "My God will supply all your needs according to his riches and glory." And we know that God is very rich. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and all the silver and gold. And here's another wonderful promise. Those who seek the Lord will not lack any good thing. Psalms 34:10. God also says, "It shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer." Isaiah 65:24. That money, the $5,000, it was just sitting there, waiting for me to claim it. God had already answered my prayer even before I prayed it. Isn't that amazing? I hope you enjoyed my story, and I'll see you next time.